Most of us are blissfully unaware of how the everyday man-made objects, tennis balls, drinks cans, even laptops actually come into being. Like me, you probably have a vague notion of factories with machines automatically churning out the kind of flawless, perfect objects we're able to buy in the shops. But how do they actually get there? This almost hidden world in which ideas, materials and production processes come together to make products is the subject of a new exhibition at the Design Museum in London. Curated by Edward Barber and Jay Oskerby, the designers behind the London 2012 Olympic torch, In the Making examines more than 20 everyday objects, each of which has been frozen at some point in its production process.
Over the years we've become fascinated by the making process. You know, we make things and we build things in our studio.
And one of the key things before we start any project is that we insist on visiting the factory where the project that we're going to do is produced, so that we can understand all the intricacies of the full process. And often when we're there, we see things that we find fascinating, which they would think we wouldn't find interesting. And we see objects which are half finished, or waste products in the process that we find fascinating and maybe even become the starting point for projects.
We just thought that would be a really interesting thing for everyone else to see. You know, when we were kids and when our parents were children and when our grandparents were children, you were completely surrounded by people who made things, and that today has sort of been replaced a little bit by this commoditization of things, you know, where you can just click and buy something. You don't necessarily appreciate what goes into making. And so this was a way of really unveiling the secret life of objects. We've actually taken the computer back, and we're showing how an Apple Mac Pro is, basically starts as a blank of aluminium, and also we've got the top of the pure silicon cylinder, which is used for making semiconductor wafers, which makes silicon chips, which in the end people design on. So in a way, we've actually unpicked the process right back to those elements. We looked at hundreds of objects and just thought we need to try and find something which, at its early stage, tells you quite a lot about what it will be in the future, but not too much. And that's quite hard because many things in today's world are made up of lots and lots of different components. So we were trying to find really quite simple objects. In a way, a lot of them are archetypal objects that we could unveil.
We've tried to have a really broad spectrum of products, objects, you know, every day, pretty much, well, they're all everyday objects, whether it's the tube train, which we have the front of sitting over there, or whether it's a pencil, or whether it's a light bulb, you know,
a cork, a tennis ball.
Everything people should be familiar with. There's nothing that's really going to feel completely out of place. And so we've tried to take a wide spectrum of things, from sporting equipment through to lighting to furniture. And we've also tried to get as broad as possible the different manufacturing techniques. So we've got moulding, machining, lots of handcrafted pieces in there as well. So it should be fascinating, really, for most people, and certainly very educational for budding designers or design students or even practitioners.
My favourite piece is the French horn, because it's ancient. It still looks, you know, it's incredibly contemporary. It's amazingly beautiful, but the form is really a byproduct of its function. It tells you when you look at it that it should be either for listening to sound or for making sound. Because the way the form is at the end, it's just beautiful.
There's so many different things that I like, but probably would be something quite simple, quite crafted, handcrafted. Maybe the hat. Maybe the bent wood back to the chair, both of which are natural materials that have been manipulated by machine into the most beautiful, simple objects.
The idea of putting half-finished objects on display in a museum might seem strange. But what this exhibition does give you is a rare insight into how ideas become products. And as the curators Edward Barber and Jay Oskerby say themselves, it also reminds you how disassociated many of us have become from the act of actually making things.
It wasn't designed to be an educational show, but I think it is. It's become that. And I think with the information that we've supplied at the end of the films, in conjunction with the objects, it can't help but be educational. So I hope that people take quite a lot away from it.
Yeah, I think you can't fail to just appreciate a bit of extra depth of understanding of everyday objects. And as Ed said, I think once you know what goes into making a marble and a tennis ball, you'll never look at them the same way again.